The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. There was no subject, and I didn't recognize the sender. Suspicious. On any other day, I might have hesitated before opening it, but on this particular Tuesday, I was in a different type of mood. I had put down my 10-year-old golden retriever the day before, and I felt like absolute shit. My head ached, my eyes burned, and sluggishness glued me to my couch. Determined to think about anything other than that godforsaken needle entering my dog's side, I decided, what the hell? I clicked on the email. The body contained one sentence. Can I tell you a story? Fishy. I assumed by responding I'd be asked to wire money to a deposed Nigerian prince, but I didn't really give a shit about email scams at that particular moment. I clicked reply and I typed my response. Lay it on me, what do you got? And so began my 2-week exchange of emails with a complete stranger. After we became unofficial email pen pals, our communication fell silent for a few days. Truthfully, I forgot all about it. I wasn't waiting on pins and needles. In a canine morning stupor, I had possibly replied to a scammer and moved on with my life. When the stranger replied on Friday, I was initially caught off guard. Something happened to me a very, very long time ago. I kept it a secret for 40 years, but I'm not sure how much time I have left. I'm sick. Quite sick. I'll be typing a damn sentence and I'm not sure if the old ticker will give out before I get to the end of it. I really just want to get it all down before I give up the ghost, and conversations are a hell of a lot more interesting when someone is on the other side. I promise it's a good story. Interested? It could have been one of my friends messing with me. I wouldn't put it past them. But pranking one of your buddies while he's recovering from putting down his companion was pretty low. I considered flat out asking who he or she was, but that would ruin the fun. A little hint of mystery would be good for me. Anything to take my mind off of my dog. I decided to have a little fun with my new pen pal. Does it begin with, "It was a dark and stormy night"? I wrote back. The stranger's reply came back seconds later. Pff, can I tell you my story now, or are you going to keep being a wise ass? This person actually wrote, "Puffed." I smiled to myself. The first time I had smiled in days, actually. Anyone who took the time to type out incredulous grunts was pretty interesting in my book. But who was my pen pal? I googled the email address. No hits. It was worth a shot. I replied back, "I'm listening." The messages quickly became longer and more personal. The next email I received was this. This story begins when I was 17. I was working for the city during the summer, landscaping for area schools, cutting lawns, hedging, stuff like that. Around early July, I was given a special assignment. Some recluse in town hadn't touched his backyard in what looked like years. It was a goddamn jungle back there. He must have had a friend in City Hall or something, because I found myself under the direction of the city to clean it up. I took one look at this guy's yard, and I knew it would take months, especially for a kid like me. I had an accident when I was younger, and my right arm was all messed up. Never worked quite right after that. You might be wondering why I was working in landscaping or how I write emails with a goofy-looking right arm. And if you are, then you can pucker up and kiss my wrinkled ass. Had this guy, it certainly seemed like a man at this point, gotten hypothetically pissed off and just abruptly ended an email? I dug it. I wrote back, "I wasn't wondering that at all. Tell me more." The reply came a few hours later. "It's good not to make judgments. It will serve you well." So I was roasting under the sun at this recluse's place for a few weeks, and I didn't see him, by the way. He never came out of his house, never thanked me, didn't so much as offer me a glass of water. I wondered if anyone lived there at all. Curtains closed, bolts on the doors, damn place looked condemned. But I was making progress. The grass was so deep I couldn't mow more than a few yards at a time. I spent most of my time bagging grass and lugging it to the truck. Christ, those were some long days. I think it was the third week that I saw the old man for the first time. He was in an upstairs window with a Super 8 video camera. It was pointing out at the yard behind us. I didn't know there was another yard back there because you'd need a goddamn 10-foot ladder to see over those prickers along the back of his property. Anyway, he must have realized I'd seen him because he kind of jumped and moved behind a curtain. Is any of this interesting to you? You might think these are some crazy ramblings that lead nowhere. I can write more, but if you're sick of this landscaping shit, I'll leave you alone. I haven't even gotten to the finer points of hedging technique yet. That's a joke, in case you're a completely humorless dolt. I do want to tell you about the girl, though. This guy had me. Absolutely had me. He was putting on this wonderful act of mixing banal details with clues and mysteries, yet presuming I didn't really give a shit about any of it. My pen pal could have been some loon, yes, and he could have been making it up, sure, but if someone hands me a mystery box, I sure as hell am gonna open it, whether it's true or not. So at this point, I had two burning questions. One, who are you? And two, why did you email me? I was tempted to ask him one of these things, but I didn't want to scare him off or throw him for a loop. A story was developing, and I wanted it as uninterrupted as I could get it. I replied back, I'm interested. Tell me about the girl. Was the old man filming her? His reply arrived the following morning at 3:17 a.m. Well, aren't you a budding Columbo? You got it. The old geezer was filming a girl. I wiggled through these prickers and back and ran smack dab into a fence. I peered through the lattices and there was this beautiful girl lying outside sunbathing. I think I even said out loud, what a goddamn pervert. But my tact wasn't much better at that moment. I watched her for a bit, my jaw hitting the ground. The girl stood up and stretched, really showed off the goods. I'll never forget it. She was wearing this white two-piece bikini, and she was absolutely glistening. And let me tell you, brother, I was hypnotized. I had never been with a girl at that point, and I'd chalked it up to that goofy right arm of mine. This young lady looked a few years older than me, and was far out of my league. But at that moment, I thought I had a chance. I must have been getting too much sun. Of course, I didn't talk to her. I was still a chicken shit. I backed away from the fence, but she knew I was there. Women always know. Well, that same afternoon, I talked to the old man. I was raking some grass clippings when I heard all these locks being undone from the back door. It creaked open, and a slightly timid voice called to me from inside. After 3 damn weeks, he finally offered me a cold drink. I walked to the door and got my first good look at the old guy. He was maybe mid or late 50s, but he definitely hadn't aged well. He looked, well, tired, beaten down by life. He didn't open the door all the way, but I got my first look inside. It looked like a tornado had ripped through a garbage dump. Boxes and trash everywhere. But the main thing I noticed was, let's call it his collection. Hanging in what must have been his living room was a goddamn medieval arsenal. I'm talking torture devices, knives, chains, a scythe, one of those metal masks used for Lord knows what. The old guy noticed my snooping eyes and slammed the door in my face. Never did get that drink. I went home that night and thought about it some more. He could have been a historian or something. Maybe he was into some weird sex stuff. But it just didn't sit right with me. This is getting kind of lengthy. I guess I'm wondering if you're still reading. Make it this far?" I didn't even consider my response. "I'm here. Did you tell the girl about what the old man was up to with the Super 8? Days went by with no response. I was worried it was over, and I'd be left dangling forever. I thought about emailing him again. Maybe my reply got lost in his inbox. Maybe he thought he sent me a reply, but it was simply sitting in his drafts. What if he was dead? This anonymous story told entirely through email had lifted my spirits after making the toughest decision I've ever had to make. My dog was gone, and this was all I had right now. My pen pal story couldn't be over. It just couldn't. I needed it. I took to watching my computer screen far more than I should have. I'd be doing work or watching a movie online, and every few seconds I'd glance at my email tab. Finally, after 5 long days of waiting, that welcome 1 appeared next to the word inbox, and I had a fresh email from the stranger. Sorry for the delay. I had some business to attend to. Where was I? Oh yes, the girl. I did talk to her. After working those prickers for a few days, the girl finally stood up from her lounge chair and sashayed towards me. She moved so smoothly, and with so much grace, I nearly dropped my hedge clippers on my damn foot. She got close and leaned up against the fence, and we made eye contact through the lattices. I did my best to look her straight in the eye, and not creepily shift my gaze down her long and slender frame. This girl leaned in close and she whispered, "He's such a creep, isn't he?" I agreed with her, and then she said, "I know he's filming me. Can you ask him to stop?" She'd barely spoke a dozen words to me, and I would have jumped off a damn bridge if she asked me to. And Christ, I'm sure any red-blooded teenager or even grown man would have done the same. But I didn't know how to confront the old geezer. The guy had that place locked down like Fort Knox. I tried the only thing I could think of, repeatedly knocking on his door. Of course he didn't answer. I went home that night defeated. I thought about telling my parents or talking to my boss, but there was this chivalrous part of me that wanted to take care of it myself. Well, the next morning, I was greeted by some surprises. A pitcher of lemonade, a plate of cookies, and a crisp $20 bill sitting on the old man's back stoop. Either I had this guy pegged wrong, or he was trying to buy me off. I pocketed the cash, greedily inhaled the cookies, and then the locks clicked behind me. The door opened a few inches, and I saw just a sliver of the old fart. "You stay away from her, you hear?" he said. "For your own good, just stay away." The door slammed, and that was that. I did my work and went home. The girl wasn't outside that day either. It was pretty cloudy, if memory serves. I'm going to stop here for now. I want you to think about what I've told you. Put yourself in my shoes all those years ago. What do you think was going on? What would you do? I'll email you the rest soon. Paranoia gripped me. The stranger had an agenda in mind, but I couldn't quite pinpoint it. I went about my routine. Wake up, work, home, sleep, repeat. I tried to focus on everyday things, but my pen pal's emails kept creeping into my brain. Just what was his endgame? I was looking at things differently. In the evening, I scanned the neighborhood windows looking for peeping Toms. I found none. When my attractive neighbor waved hello to me one morning, I thought, is someone watching you? And was my pen pal warning me about this? But nothing was out of the ordinary. Everything was the same, which disappointed me in some strange way. On the bright side, I was getting over the death of my dog. Maybe it was all a prank by a friend of mine, simply meant to distract me from my sadness. There was a moment where I believed that, and it made everything okay. I didn't need to hear the end of the story, because for me it had served its purpose. Perhaps it was a helpful distraction, and nothing more. I was wrong. So very horrifyingly wrong. The stranger's next email arrived on a Sunday at 2:37 p.m. To this very day, I wished I'd never clicked on it. You've had time to let it stew. Now let me finish it for you. I was going to let my boss know about the old man and move on. That was it. But fate intervened. I was cleaning some debris out back. There was this pile of rocks in this horribly overgrown garden, and I noticed that one looked very different from the rest. It was plastic. I picked it up and shook it. It jingled and jangled. It was one of those hide-a-key rocks, and I twisted it open. Inside was a set of keys. The old man's keys, I presumed. It was my way in. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. Interrogate the son of a bitch? I pocketed the keys and went to the fence to let the girl know. But she wasn't outside. Cloudy again, if I recall. I did my work and went home, edgy the whole time. I returned to the old man's neighborhood that night. I creeped to his back door and quietly undid all the locks. I gently pushed the door open a bit, but I didn't have the stones to go inside. So much for chivalry. What if he was waiting around the corner with a blade the size of a broomstick? I softly clicked the door shut, leaving it unlocked. I was planning on coming right back. But first I went to the girl's house. I needed backup, someone to confront him with. It was my first time seeing her place from the front. It was small and yellow and unassuming. No lights on. I approached the front door, wondering if she'd even recognize me. The place was totally dark. I peered inside through a window, and even through the blackness I could see the house was empty. Totally empty. Like it had been completely abandoned or never lived in at all. It didn't sit right. I knocked, and when no one answered, I just opened the door and poked my head inside. I heard some commotion that sounded like struggling. I approached the noise, worried that maybe the old man was there and doing something terrible. The sounds led me to a bedroom, and I pushed open the door. There was the girl. Kind of. She was on all fours, writhing in pain. Her bones were cracking and breaking. A large, black serpent slowly made its way out of the girl's body, its head emerging from the girl's mouth. Her jaw spread wide and broke apart, teeth rattling to the floor. The skin of the girl stretched and ripped apart. It was, I guess there's no other way to put it, it was a snake shedding its skin. I got the hell out of there, as you'd imagine. Ran about 4 blocks away and I collapsed to the curb. A million thoughts ran through my head, but I was instinctively sure of one thing. I was wrong about the old guy. That snake thing was out to get him. I felt it in my gut. He had been protecting himself with all that crazy shit. The home fortress, and maybe filming her to get proof, I don't know. But he was the good guy, and it was pretty clear where that serpent was headed. Hell, I'd even unlocked the door for it. I booked it to the old man's place, and his back door was wide open. I ran inside and upstairs, and I'll never forget what I saw. The old man, shaking and gasping in a chair. A giant snake coiled around his body, squeezing the life out of him. He didn't reach out to me, nor did he call out for help. I'm not sure if he could. The snake squeezed tighter, and the old man expired before me. I ran again, and I didn't stop until I got home. I called the police and stammered something about an attack happening at the old man's place. The police arrived first, and they found the old man. He was dead, of course, but there was no sign of a struggle. It appeared that he had simply died in his easy chair. Peacefully, they added. I jabbered something about a giant snake, and the cops thought I was fucking nuts. My boss at City Hall got the official word. The old man died of natural causes. No marks around the neck where a giant snake had gripped him like a vice. A lonely old man had simply expired. There was nothing unusual about that. The only unusual thing, the cop said, were the guy's windows, thickest they'd ever seen. I never told the police about having the keys. I felt bad, in a way, lying about that. And I recanted the story about the snake. Told them I'd gone back to the house to fetch some landscaping equipment I'd left behind, and in the darkness I could have sworn I saw a giant snake slither into the house. But even I admitted it must have been my eyes playing tricks on me. The cops responded with confused stares. They promptly informed my parents that their son may be a drug user, and that was that. I ditched the keys in a garbage can in town. It felt like I was committing a crime, but that was the least of my worries. I was primarily concerned that a giant fucking snake was going to creep into my house and strangle the life from me. I barely slept, and I was a red-eyed zombie in the daytime. My parents thought the cops were right, that I was on drugs. A few weeks went by, and what do you think happens next? This is a story, after all. That's how that email ended. I was enthralled and mortified. I stared at my screen until the computer went to sleep. And I wasn't thinking about if the tale was true or not. I didn't give a damn if it actually happened or not. Although I was 100% leaning towards absolutely no chance in hell. I just wanted to guess what happened next. I can't fully explain it. This stranger had unpacked himself to me, and I didn't want to disappoint him. I wanted to impress him in some strange way, like some kid desperately seeking a pat on the back from daddy. I thought for a moment, and then I typed my response. That giant fucking snake creeped into your house, didn't it? I hit send. The reply arrived at 12:33 a.m. I was still awake. Bingo. You're a smart cookie, and maybe not a humorless dolt after all. Yes, the giant fucking snake creeped into my house. I woke to the sensation of that serpent slithering under the covers of my bed. It ran across my body until its head was inches from my face. It waved its tongue around and hissed. I just lay there, motionless. The serpent had moved down my body and had stopped at my right arm. The funny-looking one. And at that moment, I think it pitied me. Maybe it identified with me in some way. Lord, I don't know. Why would a giant demon snake have compassion? But I swear to Christ it did. It shot up, flinging the covers clean off my bed, and I watched, absolutely petrified, as this 10-foot-long creature raised its head to the ceiling, towered over me, and hissed a few more times for good measure. Then it slithered away. I'm not sure how it got in or out of my house, but in the morning, it was gone. And that was that. But one part has nagged at me throughout the years. I sometimes wonder if the old man wanted me to find those keys. Maybe he was tired of hiding. I wonder. I was dumbfounded. I reread the email 10 times to make sure I didn't miss a single detail. I considered motives and objectives and circumstances and happenstances and everything in between, but I kept arriving at one question. Why did he choose to email me? So, I asked him. I drafted an email demanding this stranger tell me who he was and why he took the time to string me along with a story that was obviously an utter and complete fabrication. I clicked send. He replied in less than 20 minutes. My name is Russ, and I told you my story because she's back. I don't know why she waited all these years, but I guess there's some things you just can't explain. The evil was dormant, but now it's awake. I didn't tell a soul for 4 decades, and you know what's funny? After a while, I thought it didn't really matter. Who would believe me anyway? I've tried to rationalize it, but I can't. There's no rationalizing evil. But you can help me. I quickly replied, "How can I help you? This has gone on long enough. Do I know you? Are you a friend of mine? This was a marvelous prank. Simply astounding. Now tell me who you are." The man called Russ responded with the last email he ever sent me. "I contacted you because you can make the tough decisions. I know what you've been through, and you're stronger than me. I'm not strong enough to do it, but you are. Help me." That was it. I emailed Russ back 3, 4, 5 times. No response. I tried again and again over the next few days. Nada. Eventually, the emails bounced back, undeliverable. I thought it was over, but the story of me and Russ was just reaching its 3rd act. 4 days after Russ's email account went dark, a yellow package arrived in my mailbox. I shook it, and it jingled and jangled. My stomach dropped. Along with the set of keys was a sticky note, with an address and a short, handwritten message. "She doesn't know I sent these to you. At least I don't think she does. Remember, I'm not strong enough to do it, but you are." The town was an hour away. I drove to the address on a Saturday afternoon, and I pulled up to a quaint blue and white 2-story home. My car grumbled softly, and my hands clenched the wheel. The keys in the yellow envelope rested on the passenger seat. All of the curtains were shut. I counted 6 locks on the front door. A figure appeared at the upstairs window. It was a man of medium build, with graying hair. He raised his left hand as if to say hello. His right arm stayed at his side, bent inwards at an awkward angle. I'd had enough. I peeled out and drove off. It was the best prank I'd ever been a part of. How much planning did it take, and who was involved? It was simply stunning in its delivery. And even if it was true, simply because I made the decision to put down my dog, I'd be okay with opening up the doors for a deadly and evil serpent creature to murder an old guy? It was ludicrous. I was crossing a bridge on my way back home, and I abruptly skidded my car to a stop. I grabbed the keys from the envelope and hopped out. With as much gusto as I could muster, I launched the keys off the bridge and into the water. They quickly sank and vanished into the depths below. I got out back into my car and I took one last look at the river. When I did, I spotted someone trudging through the weeds near the riverbank. It was a young woman. She dove into the river, her tall and slender frame gracefully gliding through the water. Her movements were smooth and hypnotic, and when she reached the middle, she dove underneath the surface. I didn't wait for her to emerge. I put my foot to the gas and the bridge shrank in my rearview mirror until it disappeared entirely. Russ had told me that maybe it didn't matter if he kept his secret. No one would have believed him anyway. Now I had my own story to tell, and I wondered what to do with it. Maybe it didn't matter. No one would ever believe me either. I read Russ's obituary a few days later. It said that he died of natural causes, peacefully.